Hello everyone. Welcome. Well zooming. So, as usual, we'll start with prayers, which you are sharing. You're sharing for me. Thank you. Screen share. We'll screen share the refuge and four immeasurables before we do the teachings, which is to renew our refuge. You're not only renewing the class is not good enough. Renewing refuge is very, very important. Renewing bodhichitta is even more important. So let's do that by joining our hands together and do the prayers. Oyenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Hare Refuge Elajama Bhavachu Ajevenda Ajare Vadavatu Vebe Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Hare Lajama Bhavachu Ajevenda Ajare Vadavatu Vebe Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Hare Lajama Bhavachu Ajevenda Ajare Vadavatu Vebe happiness and the cause of happiness, may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering, may they never from the happiness that no suffering, may they draw equanimity, free from her judgment and aversion to those near and far. May hobbies, happiness, and the cause of happiness, may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering, may they never from the happiness that knows no suffering, may they draw equanimity, free from her judgment and aversion to those near and far. May hobbies, happiness, and the cause of happiness, may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering, may they never from the happiness that knows no suffering, Mededwa Equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those never God into the intelligence and bread possession of it, where the yet and Dharma agrelo come go. Thank you, everyone, once again. I particularly like to thank our IT people who are working very hard here, particularly Paul Binus, really, and York, of course. He doesn't want to be mentioned. That's really him. And Greg as well, and they've done a lot of work. Recently I was on the weekend somewhere in Milton, and someone from Buddhist Council attended the weekend. She wanted me to tell how good our live streaming is. Very well received. She said these are some of the best kind of live streaming quality, but this really is only made possible by really people who really give lots of hours and times behind the scene. So sometimes we think people with particular executive titles, of course they do a lot of work too, but then those people who are really connected, who are really attending to our sessions regularly, particularly during the pandemic, we could not do without all our very great Dharma brothers who put this effort. So we wish them really thank you. And I would not be able to do any of this on my own, so I'm totally lack of inherently existing teacher. You're totally dependent on the support of amazing Sangha. And I don't think they work hard, but I don't think they're working like a, dog, They're working like horse, galloping in a great grace for the benefit of others, So anybody who works in the community and society who think they're working like a dog, they better change their attitudes, because that's not true. Everything is voluntary, and they should not push themselves, let alone push each other. They should do it delightfully, and we definitely have all our team do that, do that. So this is very relevant, particularly the topic we are coming to. Last week we talked about what bodhicitta constitute, wishing, engaging bodhicitta, and then practicing that by learning to remember the precepts of bodhicitta. So tonight we're going to explore that even more, because here Rongton has an amazing way of making sure that we do not forget bodhicitta. Of course, Rongton has a particular way of presenting it, but the original idea that we do not forget the bodhicitta, the Mahayana Buddhist scholars have put out 22 analogies so that we do not forget the bodhicitta. So it says there are 22 enlightenment thoughts, analogies, so that people with dull faculties, say we are dull faculties, if you are sharp faculties, I'm sorry. If you belong to a little bit dull faculties, tendency to forget bodhicitta, then you better remember these 22 analogies. So here Rongton says there are 22 analogies of enlightenment thoughts to tame and help people of dull faculties. So these 22 analogies we will discuss is to, firstly, it's these 22 22 analogies comes from Mahayana Sutra Alankara, which is the one of the 5 major texts by Asanga. Sometimes they think it's Maitreya, but I think it's Asanga who received the teachings. Whether Maitreya gave the teachings or not is highly questionable, because Maitreya has yet to appear in the world. But people think it's Maitreya, even though they might be somebody else. Probably it's Shakyamuni Buddha who appeared in his meditation. But the general Buddhist belief is that the Maitreya is the one who gave these teachings to Asanga, 5 texts, and one of the main texts is called Mahayana Sutra Alankara. In that, there is this 2 verse which lists these 22 analogies. So I'll give you the 22, because when Rongton uses this, he uses this 22 analogies of bodhicitta, and then explains how each of these analogies correspond to the different parameters, different parameters, like 6 parameters, and so he have many different ways of sub-categorizing them. So these 22 analogies are, the 22 analogies are, first is earth, second is gold, third is moon, fourth is fire, and fifth is mine, sixth is gem, seventh is ocean, and the eighth is diamond, ninth is mountain, 10th is medicine, 11th is spiritual friend, 12th is a wish-fulfilling gem, and 13th is a sun, 14th is songs, and the 15th is king, 16th is a treasure house, treasury, you can call it treasury. 17th is highway, and 18th is vehicle. 19th is reservoir. 20 is music. 21st is river, and 22nd is cloud. So these are the 22 analogies. Now, it's very good to remember these, and the Rongton goes to explain these 22 analogies in the following way. Firstly, he says in order to help people of dull faculties, they should remember these 22 and then try to correspond what qualities of the 6 parameters correspond to each of these analogies. He firstly subdivides the bodhicitta into 3 bodhicitta. Remember, we talked at the beginning last week that wishing bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. So here he subdivides the wishing bodhicitta into 3. So he calls them armored bodhicitta. He subdivides that into 3. Armored bodhicitta, and second is engaged bodhicitta. So he subdivides the whole bodhicitta, basically. Sorry, I made a mistake. All bodhicitta is divided into 3 separate. The armored bodhicitta, and engaged bodhicitta, and subsequent bodhicitta. So when we talk about the armored bodhicitta, when he's referred to armored bodhicitta, he's talking about the wishing bodhicitta. So you have to first of all ensure that your wishing bodhicitta is armored. So armored bodhicitta is the wishing bodhicitta. This has 3 subdivisions. So armored bodhicitta, the wishing bodhicitta has 3 levels of armoring it. First is the devotion. Second is the intention. Third is the extraordinary intention. Now these 3 levels of armor bodhicitta respectively correspond to the first 3 analogies we just went through. First 3 analogies: earth, gold, and moon. So that will be explained separately. And then when he talked about engaged bodhicitta, the engaged bodhicitta is actualization bodhicitta. So engaged bodhicitta concerns with the fourth analogy, fire. So what does fire do? Fire, when you see, it's so engaged, it's incinerate everything. It would not hesitate not to engage. Fire blazes very quickly. It's fire means it's really on. Likewise, when you're employing bodhicitta, engaging bodhicitta, be that generosity, be that discipline, whichever of the 6 parameters, your engaged bodhicitta has one overall analogy that is fire-like, fire. So just like fire burns everything, Likewise, the engaged bodhicitta goes to engage like a fire. So fire, which is the 4th analogy, is a collective example of all engaged bodhicittas. And so from the 4th analogy, fire, all the way to the 14th analogy, which is the songs, these are all under the engaged bodhicitta analogies. These are all analogy for all forms of engaged bodhicitta. All forms of engaged bodhicitta are what? They are the 10 parameters. You have 6 parameters, but sometimes we have 10 parameters. So here we will talk about 10 parameters, starting with generosity and discipline and so on. And then third one, which is the subsequent bodhicitta. Subsequent bodhicitta is the enlightenment thought, that you consequent to your practice of engaged bodhicitta, how you need to complement and seal it with subsequent bodhicitta. And this analogy covers from the number 15, which is the king, all the way up to the 22nd, which is the clouds. So these are very of these now. So that's the overall. I would say the outline, what we will cover. Yeah, very, very beautiful way of looking at it. But when you look at Asanga's text, it shows nothing like that. Okay, he lists the 22. That's it. Whoever want to make sense of it, they can go. But the Rongton, having studied the whole 100,000 perfection wisdom texts, as well as the 8,025 verses and Heart Sutra and all, he just completely, he has the overview of the whole perfection wisdom. Because of that, he uses the whole 22 analogy to explain all the parameters. So now to go over the first, which is the first is the armored bodhicitta. Yeah, armored bodhicitta. The armored bodhicitta has two subsections. One in relation to person. How do you armor your bodhicitta? And one in relation to the bodhicitta itself. One in relation to person. So first one is in relation to the person. So when we talk about the armor bodhicitta, there are 3, isn't it? First 3 analogies, which is devotion, the intention, and extraordinary intention. Yeah, devotion is the earth. Analogy is the earth. So you need to be devoted. You need to be devoted in relation to the person, a person. The person in this case is the teacher, what we call Mahayana's Kalyana Mitra, the virtuous friend of Mahayana teachings. So therefore, when you become so indebted to the teachings of bodhicitta, you should have that devotion to the lineage of teacher, succession of master who brought this to you, delivered to your door. So you should be indebted to the Kalyana Mitra, a virtuous friend who introduced you through bodhicitta. So he quotes this the Sanchaya Gatha Sutra that all qualities that we have stems from having met the Kalyana Mitra, virtuous friend, virtuous friend. So now this will now explain why that is so. Why that is so. This is Mahayana teachings. Of course, the teaching is very important, but teaching comes from teachers. Succession of teachers. Buddha came, Asanga came. Buddha came in 2,600 years ago. Asanga came in 3rd century. What would have made possible for the teachings of the Buddha, 2,600 years ago to reach to Asanga? That's the 2nd century. 2nd century really means 700 years after Buddha passed away. So there must be all kind of teachers who made it possible to Asanga to receive the teaching. Then from Asanga, who is the 3rd century or 4th century, even some people would date the 4th century. 4th century is according to Buddhist chronology quite early. Nagarjuna is 2nd century. And Tibet have never heard of even Buddhism. They probably were drinking the blood of yaks. When they make friends between two people, they were let the blood from the yak and drink the hot blood and make friends. The Tibet was living in that kind of countries. Buddhism only came in 8th century in Tibet. 7th century. So we're talking about what made this teaching to come all the way through Asanga down through before at the very beginning we were talking about at the beginning of the term. Rongton was saying there were 36 Indian masters. Indian masters that came all the way to Asanga, and then from Asanga up till now, it's actually quite historically there, historic people who actually studied under Asanga, wrote the text, and then translated Asanga text to the present. Chinese Buddhists have done very well. Mahayana Buddhist and Tibetan Buddhists have translated all the Mahayana Buddhist texts from Sanskrit into Tibetan from the 2nd century AD onwards. Some people would even think they were even earlier than Asanga, People like Xuanzang, when he went to India in the 7th century, he has only heard about the greatness of the Asanga, but he never met the Asanga. But he probably was studying the text written by Asanga, So when we're talking about here how important Kalyan Mitra, spiritual friend, are, we're talking about the great succession of lineage masters that makes this teaching living tradition. So in relation to that, we will now look at the what they call the logical reason why the spiritual teachers are important, and we should be devoted to. And here, spiritual friend is like an eye. Virtuous friend is like the eye, because the virtuous friend looks over the mental continuum of the deluded sentient beings, and then helps them to point them to know what the afflicted mind mental conception creates, and then the guidance of the spiritual friend oversees and influences the application of the relevant antidotes, the teachings, the Dharma. This goes with this. If you have this problem, practice this. So they actually gives the medicine of that Buddha. Medicine came from the Buddha. But the nurses actually help to dispense the medicine, isn't it? Likewise, spiritual friends are like an eye tool. Like the most patient without the help of nurses don't know what to do. So nurses help them to get well. Then he watches whether the disciple accepts or rejects Dharma. So you can see how the spiritual friend has a role not only to dispense the Dharma, but also he has to tailor the Dharma according to how cooperative the disciples are. Some are not so cooperative, some will reject certain teachings. So lots of people don't want to hear about reincarnation, for instance. They don't want to go there, And others will quite be faithful. So the teacher oversees all of that. Then he watches whether they are endowed with the Dharma believing mentality or not. Then he watches whether they can be repelled or not. He will see whether these would-be disciples' behaviors or attitude could be shifted or not. Quite a lot of people are not really willing to give in much unless they don't like it, and they don't want anything to do with you. You can see how difficult it is to take the role of teacher, because there are not many willing disciples. Even they talk about the qualities of teacher, but how about the quality of disciples? There are very few who are willing to actually be this good student. So the teachers like Marpa would have been. Marpa was not famous for having many disciples. I don't think he was easy to relate by everybody. But for some reason, like Milarepa, that was the teacher he needed the most. So if you look at how many people were disciples of Marpa, I don't think there's so many. Why? Because not every teacher is able to attract all the students. So we're talking about the teacher who repel. Yeah, indeed. Marpa repelled Milarepa so many times. Now, wasn't even allowed to attend the teaching session, let alone. He was made to do all kind of chores. He has to do all the things and wouldn't. So he definitely repelled. Of course, these days, no teacher dare to repel anybody. You be repelled yourself before you can even think of repelling anybody. We have come to such kind of era. Then he watches whether they have mastered the stages of the teachings or not. So this is talking about the teacher that is like the eye. Then second analogy is the teacher that is like the armor. The virtuous friend is like an armor. If you have earned a teacher, they say you have an eye for you. You have someone to ask to, and he or she gives you guidance, and you follow that, and that's it. So you don't have to look for anything but the guidance. And the second is when the virtuous friend is like an armor to you, that the weapon cannot harm the body that is armored. Likewise, the one who respect and have devotion. This is talking about devotion. The first of the 22 analogies is the devotion, like the earth. So your devotion to the teacher and the Dharma in practicing bodhicitta, because you love the bodhicitta so much, therefore your devotion to the teacher and lineage that gave you is so stable like a earth, because earth is the foundation of all things that grows. When you have earth or land, everything you have is supported by that. Everything that we eat and drink all comes and grows from it. So likewise, your devotion to the teacher is from the source from which all the things grow. Likewise, therefore the teacher is like an eye, and second is like the armor. Like weapon cannot harm the body of one who's armored. Likewise, negativities of other people cannot harm you when you are armored by having this deep belief in bodhicitta that you receive, because you're armored by taking on bodhicitta. If your vehicle is not armored, it can dent very quickly. If it's armored, even though it meets, it doesn't. So even though you have a lot of rough and tough treatment by people or the circumstances, you're not battered anymore. You're not saying, poor me anymore. Why? You're completely armored by the teachings and influence of the teachings, and therefore you respect and value the teachings from the teacher, and you will not be harmed by others' afflictions or rough treatment, and let alone by your own affliction, because you wouldn't even give rise to them, because you're armored. You're armored means you wouldn't give rise to, you don't develop affliction with afflictions. Ordinary people will give rise to affliction with affliction. Someone is angry, you're also angry. Teaching those who have heard bodhicitta knows how to armor themselves to practice loving kindness to who are angry to you. So you're very, 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 very armored. Okay. Now, the third analogy for the spiritual friend is a guide, your spiritual friend is a guide. You have a guide now. The guide for those who do not know the road, know exactly where to go, where to turn left, how long it takes, and so on. If one does not know the road, does not have a guide to show the road, when one travels in the distant, empty northern land, there's a danger of either returning back or where he started or go missing. Yeah. So if you don't have a guide, you get lost. Those people who haven't got the devotion to have a spiritual friend, spiritual companion, they will be lost. They will indeed be lost. After quite a few miles of travel, they will go lost and go missing. Therefore, we all need guide, and you need to be devoted to the guide. Similarly, if one does not have a virtuous friend, one can either fall in the lower realms or swayed by the wrong side of the path. Therefore, the virtuous friend can prevent this from happening and will guide to reach the state of omniscience. So bodhichitta that you wanted to remember comes from your ability to conceive the virtue of bodhicitta by your devotion to the spiritual friend who is a guide to you. This is talking about guide who taught you, introduced you that bodhicitta is the churned butter from the milk of the Dharma. So when you recognize, essence of the Dharma, essence of refuge, essence of even precepts, essence of doing sadhanas, essence of learning all these things is to practice altruism. And one who has really made you to recognize that has shown you the way, and people can teach you many things to do, But the one who has really made you to recognize the gem out of all the lookalike gems, look-alike, all things other look like gems, Some people are interested in Tibetan Buddhism. They're buying bones and they're collecting some human remains from Tibet and become very, very amazed by those things, or some religious objects. That's really good. That's good. But the main thing you should really look for is the gem of the bodhicitta. If you really understood that the all the things that you really want to collect, the essence of bodhicitta, and then you have not lacked a guide. The virtuous friend has indeed made you to be virtuous, for you know exactly where to go, what to get. You haven't swayed the path, you haven't gone on the wrong side of the road. Therefore, virtuous friend can prevent this from happening, and one will be guided to reach that it is through the bodhicitta Buddhahood achieve. Buddha attained to bodhicitta. Asceticism, strict vows, all those things are just paraphernalia of it. But the main thing that kept him going not to give up is the bodhicitta. So therefore, one needs to respect the great the bodhicitta implantation that has planted in your mental continuum. So the virtuous friend is a virtuous friend to which you should be dedicated. Who you get dedicated to is because he or she or them gave you how to acquire bodhicitta. So he's a guide. Likewise, next example is bandicoot friend is like a bodyguard who can protect you from any danger that you're going through. So say if you have a bodyguard, who will make sure, who protects you from danger of other things that may attack you or that you may expose to danger. And similarly, on the journey to the omniscience, the enemy's afflictions and wrong conception of your own will arise, and you are likely to be defeated by them. Have you not been guarded by the virtuous friend who will protect you from being exposed to such vulnerabilities? So therefore, you would sometimes, we call refuge, this is really talking about refuge. You have been saved. You have been saved from reacting, overreacting, or thinking this way or saying these things. Why? Because you remember bodhicitta.
You remember bodhichitta, and you say, if I say this, my Dharma friend, my spiritual friend, of course I'm not heeding to the Dharma, because they said even if somebody is difficult to you, you should practice kindness to them, and you remember that, and that's really good. Then they are like with you, always like a guard, They're always like a guard to you, God, it protects you, It's like insurance. That's why people is not about worshipping somebody as they are perfect or they have no fault. It's not like that. It's gratitude. We're talking about gratitude. Someone who really God protected you from making up unchildish reaction, because they made you to hear and heed to the Dharma. That's a real friend. That's a real friend. The others will say, "Oh, he does this, you should do this. If he does this, you should stand that up." And they'll tell you, and it looks like they're helping you, but they actually will make you feel completely beaten up later on. But the virtuous friend says, "Look, this, although it is not really fair for them to do anything like that to you, but in the long run, you'd be better off practicing patience and kindness and see that as a trick of your own past wrongdoings, rather than retaliating them, rather than proving them wrong." And Dharma teaching says that. No other teachings of the civil society teaches that. They say no. You should stand up for yourself. The Dharma teaching says, sure, it is very difficult, but when you hear that, remember the teaching. It guards you from taking the wrong kind of option. You say, "Oh, it seems so right. It seems so, in the real world you will do this, but this is illusory world. This is not real world. It's illusory world. You think it's real world, but you're deluded, thinking it's real. But what you get is completely deceptive. The result is completely deceptive. You got nothing better than outcome. So, of course, those who can heed to such guidance is not many. That's why you have to armor your bodhicitta. That's what makes sure you have to armor your bodhicitta so that you don't lose it. And you therefore value your spiritual friend and your spiritual friendship, and do not let it be tainted or destroyed by any negative influence or whatsoever you might have. You wouldn't believe how quickly people lose respect to somebody if they just listen to some negative influence. But if you hear the Dharma so much, but still you could not be influenced by it, that probably shows one hasn't been armored. One is not armored. One hasn't got the conceived the bodhicitta that there is like a ground of earth to stand on. So that's the next analogy is that your spiritual friend is like a sharp sword and a sharp knife. The sword will cut everything into pieces. Likewise, the authentic spiritual knowledge from the authentic spiritual lineage and a spiritual friend who helps you to sharpen your mind will teach you to cut through these afflictions and wrong conception of bad disciples. So the disciples who are struggling with their karma and affliction, the teachings that come from the spiritual master fearlessly will shatter those wrong views, and like a sharp knife will cut through. So the reason, the rationale, the explanation, and maybe some parables, stories, analogies like these will help you to clearly understand how sharp the knife is. Like the sword of wisdom of Manjushri is to sharpen your intelligence. If the teacher and the lineage of the teachers teaches you how to sharpen your dull mind rather than blame people and things, then they have actually sharpened your mind. If they say, "Oh, you should do this to them because they did this to you," tit for tat, there's nothing sharp about it. Is the dog also barks when somebody barks at them? You don't even have to teach to bark to barker. So you don't need any intelligence. But to practice tolerance in order to take the fear out of the first barker is you need a lot of sharp sense of faculty. So So. So that's the analogy of a knife. Spiritual friend should be someone who's really teaching is very sharp and cut through the misconceptions of yourself and others. While you may not like it, but it is so sharp you wouldn't have a chance to reject it. And the next one is the spiritual friend should be likened to a precious gem, precious gem, because all the wishes and desires are fulfilled when you have a gem. It's the kind of Indian ideological belief that if you have a precious gem, everybody who hold a gem make a wish, it comes true. I don't know what that it is, but it's one thing I don't know. Maybe it's a trophy. Modern thing is, people hold the trophy, they think very good. They held for a while, they were really happy. Anyway, so a spiritual friend is like a wish-fulfilling gem. You couldn't have found anything better. You have met many people, you have met many friends, you crossed many roads and so on. But that meeting, that finding of the Dharma, like Shariputra, when he heard Asvajit, he couldn't believe. He has met many spiritual friends, but when he heard Asvajit quote the Buddha about the dependent origination, and then Shariputra couldn't believe that meeting. That meeting was the gem, because he's been looking all his life for higher wisdom. But until he heard the Asvajit, who is the one of the 5 mendicants Buddha, quoted what Buddha said, he just couldn't believe this is gem. Like for Shariputra, his teacher was Asvajit. He thought Asvajit was the Buddha. He didn't think that you need to go and meet the Buddha, because what Asvajit said was exactly what the Buddha said. So therefore, so Shariputra's main honored teacher is Asvajit. Asvajit is one of the only 5 disciples of the Buddha. But Shariputra, who really, his first port of call to the Dharma was meeting Asvajit. Like that, For him, it's like a gem. Similarly, all wholesome deeds, seeds of virtues, arise by relying upon a spiritual friend. So, like the gem, you make a wish, you fulfill. Likewise, when you have a good spiritual friend, Mahayana Kalyana Mitra, who promotes and teaches bodhichitta, then all good things will happen to you. All your wishes fulfill. You no longer have enmity towards people. After that. Why? Because enmity was the cause of stress, anger, sleeplessness, and ill will, and blood clotting, and all that. They talk about AstraZeneca caused blood clotting. I couldn't believe that. People clotting their blood by their own enmity more often than AstraZeneca. So fear, enmity, not AstraZeneca. Blood clotter is your enmity. So those people whose blood get clotted by taking AstraZeneca, they think it's AstraZeneca is clotting the blood. Oh, they have many underlying medical conditions, which means underlying enmity issues. Underlying enmity issues then makes the body very, very vulnerable to not be able to cope with such well-researched medication, which is 1 in a million has the blood clotting. So how about the other none? So they're not blood clotting. Why? There's something in the individual's karma. So wish fulfilling gem. When you have bodhicitta, you can unclot the blood. That's what we're talking about. Why? It's like a gem. You practice bodhicitta, you wouldn't believe how healing it is. The Shantideva says in the 2nd chapter, if you practice bodhicitta, it's the greatest purification of your karma. You don't have to do extraordinary visualization of pus coming out, blood coming out, all this. You practice bodhicitta, remember bodhicitta, it will purge more negativity than you have to even visualize. So that's why the one who teaches you bodhicitta, you should be devoted as a earth. devotion to. Second, next example is that your spiritual friend is like a soil, like a fertile soil in the summer. While all plants, trees, forests, crops grow from the very soil. Without the soil, you can't grow. Likewise, if you have not met a spiritual friend who teaches and promotes and sow the seeds of bodhicitta in you, then you have the soil. Then all things will grow because you have the devotion to the soil. Without soil, how can you grow? Even people in the rooftop, they try to grow, but they can't grow on the concrete. They have to take some soil. They have to take some soil on the rooftop to grow some veggies on even rooftop. Likewise, no matter who you are, that's what I mean. No matter who you are, unless you have devotion to the spiritual lineage of bodhicitta and devotion to that, this is not talking about promoting individuals. You're talking about the very legacy of the bodhicitta is promoted by virtuous friend. Similarly, all the temporal and ultimate qualities originate from relying upon a virtuous friend, a kalyana mitra. Rongton used this to develop devotion to the spiritual friend, not saying he will rescue you, not he will do for you, but due to your positive connection, due to your positive liaison to the spiritual friend, you will find yourself growing, cultivating, experiencing amazing emotional spiritual growth that you would not get from otherwise. So that's what I really mean, talking about, what changes you are noticing in you. Likewise, next one is a spiritual friend. So that's the first analogy, yeah? That's the first one, so to do with the person. Now the second is to do with the intention. Now after having the intention to follow, adhere to a virtuous friend, one should then possess. So the first one is the ground, the earth, yeah? Earth is the devotion. Second is the intention. Now you have to have intention. Even you have met spiritual friend who would give you all of this, but you have to conceive an intention. Oh, I really must make up mind to take up bodhicitta. So that's this gold. Yeah, that's the analogy of the gold, isn't it? Gold is the second analogy. So that's the analogy of the like gold is the best metal. Likewise, best of intention is to take up bodhicitta. It's like you're sitting there trying to order a meal. You order the gold, you order bodhicitta. Very good. You order bodhicitta. Very good. You order bodhicitta. I don't know whether any restaurant they serve bodhicitta or not, but just imagine you went some restaurant and you order the bodhicitta. And it's gold. Out of all the things you could order, you order the best of all. So therefore, the intention, the bodhicitta, intention. Even you have a spiritual friend, you met them, but if you don't have your own intention to take up bodhicitta, they cannot make you. So this is very important. Bodhicitta is kind of a realization. You have to realize that by churning of the Dharma milk of Dharma, you must be able to make the butter. You must be able to churn the butter to know that's the bodhicitta. So that's what it is saying. One should possess an unchangeable mind that conceives the goldness of the bodhicitta. Gold doesn't tarnish, gold doesn't rust. Likewise, your intention never changes to drop bodhicitta, which is like the quality gold. You can call 24 karat gold. 24 karat gold. There are 15 karat gold ones too, So you got bodhicitta. And the gold will not lose its quality, whatever testing methods such as rubbing, smelting, burning are used. Likewise, no matter how many times you will check and test the bodhicitta, it will never let you down. Similarly, it is important to trust, stable, respect, faith in the virtuous friend. So your intention to follow the guidance of virtuous friend has to be like a gold. If your own intentions changing and slipping and withdrawing, then the virtuous friend can't do much. So you need your own intention, because the karma is mainly the intention, and the intention is altruism, like a gold. So therefore, armor bodhicitta. First is devoted to a spiritual friend. Second is devoted to the spiritual friend, not because he's spiritual, because you wanted to conceive and take up bodhicitta. It's like saying, I'm going to buy the land, Can I sign the contract? Yes, can I sign the contract to take up bodhicitta? Oh, you're most welcome. Most welcome. But you can't change your mind, Oh, why not? Oh, because it's gold. It has to, you have to, the Mahayana bodhicitta, Mahayana's practice is not to forget bodhicitta. Why? It's like gold, So those of you who have a little piece of gold in your body, that's a very good thing to do. Even monks put little gold in their body after they heard this teaching. How do they make sure they don't forget the bodhicitta? So some of them put a little gold on the teeth, because monks not meant to wear jewelries. But putting a golden teeth is quite allowed. You can see the Tibetan monks some of them have golden teeth, so that they remember. They have to remember little gold. I have a little gold. His Eminence Chogye, my teacher gave me both of these two gold. Nobody gave me gold. I tell you that. But he gave me both these two gold. One is that this chain, and the other is the ring. Both of these, And of course, I've heard the meaning of the bodhicitta like a gold. Bodhicitta should be like a gold, should not tarnish. So we ourselves should not rust, drop the bodhicitta. And so keeping a little piece of gold in your body is always a constant reminder to not give up your unchangeable mind to keep bodhicitta. And earth, of course, first is earth, isn't it? So the devotion to the spiritual friend who gave you this is the earth, because we're always on the earth, so we can never forget earth. Except you go to moon, maybe. So that's why don't go to moon. Stay on earth. stay on earth. You remember how earth is very important. Earth is very important. Earth is analogy of devotion to bodhicitta. Devotion to bodhicitta and those who taught you bodhicitta. And your gold is analogy, so that your intention is gold, like gold. This is wishing bodhicitta, this is still wishing bodhicitta. And then the third analogy, remember? The third analogy is, if you have this kind of amazing composition of I have found bodhicitta. Today my life is truly meaningful. I have born in the race of the Buddhas. So Shantideva says, today I'm born as a child in the family of the Buddhas. Having been born in the race of Buddha, I shall from today onwards make sure that this is not denigrated or devalued by my behavior. So I must look after this pure gene of the bodhicitta that I have just inherited by giving born. And then he says, may the gods and deities, whoever are bearing witness to me, conceive this, please keep the watch on me always, so that I don't forget this. It's amazing, Shantideva. So imaginative, so that I have got the bodhicitta. Please, you guys keep an eye so that I don't misplace it. So, little bit of gem is Mahayanas. Monastics usually don't keep the gold, but in Mahayana is a very skillful one. You can have some gold. Not so that you're attached to gold, but you forget bodhicitta, there's gold-like. So every time you see the gold a little bit, just make a reminder of your intention. That should be like a gold. When tested by your enemy, when you're challenged by someone who dislike you, who really have a terrible way of putting you down, that time they'll test you. They'll test you whether you are aluminum or gold. That time, remember, you have bodhicitta, so you must not retaliate them. Don't think they are wrong, you are right. That's aluminium. You're going to rust, you're going to break into pieces, you're going to mangle up very quickly, you know. So remember, you have bodhicitta, and when you are tested, testing example of gold is when you are facing adversarial situation. Remember bodhicitta, Don't remember who's right and who's wrong. Remember bodhicitta vows, how I should remember bodhicitta and not go into who's right and who's wrong, but who can be kind to make a difference. Then now you are remembering goal like bodhicitta. That is your intention. What should be because if you become today like that, tomorrow like that, you try to practice patience. They say, how many years I can practice patience with this kind of people? And they say, I had enough. I had enough. So that's what the third analogy is. Third analogy is waxing moon. Analogy is the waxing moon. Your bodhicitta should be not only armored, but armored like it should be your intention should be extraordinary, not ordinary. When things go well, you keep the good intention. When things doesn't go, you're gonna change. That's not extraordinary. That's ordinary. So your intention, bodhicitta, should be extraordinary intention. Why? If this intention is cultivated, then it needs to develop with extraordinary sincerity, like the waxing moon. Not only in a good mood you practice bodhicitta, otherwise when things go difficult, you are not waxing. So the third one is waxing bodhicitta. Your bodhicitta should be increasable when your opposite are difficult. Things get more difficult, you should increase your bodhicitta even more. That's the waxing bodhicitta. So you should look at the moon every lunar month. Every month there is a waxing moon. Please watch them. How much of the world is made different by the waxing moon. In a very hot day in Queensland, you would really appreciate a beautiful, cool moon waxing each night. Cool moon, take the heat of life. Likewise, when your bodhicitta is waxing, it's not waning, It's usually people tend to wane when they meet the difficulties, yeah? The bodhicitta should not wane when the antithesis or opposite are great. When the opposite are great, then you should increase your bodhicitta extraordinarily, like the waxing moon. Like the waxing moon, extraordinary. Just the moon waxes increasingly from the new moon until the full moon. One should endeavor to increase one's devotion towards the spiritual friend and practice the bodhicitta more and more, in spite of what adversary you might face. So these are the first three analogies. First three analogies called armored bodhicitta. That's the wishing bodhicitta. That's the analogy of wishing bodhicitta in relation to the spiritual friend. So when you work with your spiritual friend, you need to increase your devotion. How to keep these three, remember these three analogies to be really strong devotion like the earth, and good quality like the gold, and growing stronger and better even if you meet with adversities like the waxing moon. And you should, if your devotion to and friendship to the spiritual friend is increasing, because no matter what difficulties are, then you have got the wishing bodhicitta, armored bodhicitta. These three analogies in relation to the person. The second is in relation to the teaching. It says that secondly, the intent in relation to Dharma, the bodhicitta itself. Firstly, it is very important to have the intention to follow the holy Dharma. So you are not following the person, teacher, for the sake of following the person. Okay, that's very dangerous. People are mistaking that. They say rely on the Dharma, not the person. If you rely on the person, you're following in order to follow the Dharma. By having the intention to follow the Dharma, one will gain admission into the Dharma. So you will get to know, benefit yourself more with the Dharma. From this develops the intention to follow the Dharma. Bodhicitta is the one you follow. You don't always follow the person. A person teaches you Dharma and then say, I show you Dharma, follow that. People don't do that. They forget the Dharma, they follow the person in the wrong reason. For various other kind of distraction. And then, of course, they don't get. Then they miss the Dharma, of course. So one needs to follow the Dharma. From this develops the intention to follow the Dharma, the support of all good things, including all temporal and ultimate qualities, by one self-developing bodhicitta. Would it suffice merely by first having intention to follow Dharma? No. If one alternate the wish to follow the Dharma at times and not other times, it contradicts with the enlightenment thought that needs to be unchangeable like the gold. So it's not so much your relationship with the spiritual friend is unchangeable like gold, waxing and strong like earth, but your intention to follow the Dharma should also be unchangeable like the gold. Your mind should not say, look, the bodhicitta is too ideal for me. I tried a little bit, but it's not really possible to work. It's too ideal in this real world. So it's too much for me because there's not many other people doing it. So why should I stick out my neck type of thing? Quite a lot of people think like that. Oh, nobody does that. Why should I bother? I thought everybody was doing it. Then it would be good because then I'm good company. I will be morally supported by everybody. But look, it's in the end, and I'm the alone in trying to do this, and nobody seems to be doing. I mean, you are thinking that, he's thinking that, she's thinking that. Everybody thinking like that. Of course, there will be change of heart, isn't it? Oh, why would I want to do that? So therefore, one must not change. One should stay like gold. One should not go rust or tarnish by difficulties. If one alternate the wish to follow the Dharma at times, not at other times, it contradicts the very enlightenment thought that need to be pure, unchangeable like gold. The intention should be like gold. Therefore, one should have an intention to follow Dharma so that it remains unchangeable like a good quality gold. So one thing is you having good relationship with that is improving like gold. Another thing is your own relationship with your intention. That should be gold. That's much more important, isn't it? That's much more important. Because even though your relationship with a spiritual friend are good, but they die or they disappear or whatever, then what are you going to do? But you still have to have your intention with you. Even if Buddha passed away, monks were crying. Buddha said, what's the problem? You got the teachings. Yeah, that's right. If he got the teachings, and that to which our relationship is just improving, then it doesn't really matter. The teacher is a guide, remember? He will take you somewhere, and then he says, now you go. He can't be always there. He's not an immortal guide, He's a mortal guide. Mortal guide. So therefore, it's very important. He says, even in happiness, practice Dharma. Even in suffering, practice Dharma. So in both happiness and ups and downs in your life, you should never forget bodhicitta. That's what it's really saying. Even in sickness, practice bodhicitta. Even in health, practice bodhicitta. So it's very important. Even if evil spirits harm, practice Dharma. Yeah? Even harmed by evil spirits, practice Dharma. Practice Dharma even if your merit is great. Means things are going very well. Don't think, oh, now everything's going so well, I don't need to put bodhicitta practice. It looks like it's a passive income happening already. That you don't have to do anything. No, always review your bodhicitta. Always review bodhicitta. Remember 6 times a day or whatever. Review bodhicitta. Practice Dharma. Even if people's love is small, even people don't love you much as you want them to, their love or respect for you is very small. Even that is the case, you must practice bodhicitta. One should stay firm to practice Dharma without letting any condition to waver your bodhicitta. Yeah. Bodhicitta should be be kept really, really strong. Consequently, one should ensure that the extraordinary sincerity, like the waxing moon, in practice Dharma makes consistent progress, just like the new moon wax all the way up to the full moon. So you should always, no matter how things are difficult, you should still not let the bodhicitta wane. Maybe sometimes what you can do physically or time-wise, maybe you couldn't do 2 things, or maybe you can't do 4 things, or maybe you can't. But doesn't mean you have to compromise bodhicitta. You can also have a rest and bodhicitta. Rest with bodhicitta. If you're sick with the bodhicitta, you say even you're sick, you still practice bodhicitta. Bodhicitta doesn't. Bodhicitta, you can't take a sick leave from bodhicitta. It's ridiculous. That's what I can't understand. People say, I don't want to do this anymore. You can't retreat from bodhicitta. Then it's not bodhicitta anymore. Then, how have you seen a waxing moon waning all of a sudden? It takes you all the way to the full moon. So you need to take the literal analogy for a reason. So consistent. So that's the all about the wishing bodhicitta. Can you see now? All those 3 analogies. Beautiful, isn't it? The three analogies of wishing bodhicitta is called armored bodhicitta. They are armored if you remember the earth and gold and waxing moonlight. These are always, you need to check your intention. You have devoted to first is devotion to the teacher, teachings, and bodhicitta. And then you have your intention to practice that is the bodhicitta, not because you're attracted to teacher or people or personality or their status or whatever. People get attracted to people. They're only worshipping people. It's really dangerous. They're not actually valuing the Dharma, So if they're really valuing the Dharma, they don't look for status of the person, health of the person, ups and downs of this person. You don't denigrate, you're going to drop them just because your bodhicitta is more important, because you're following Dharma, not the person. Your relationship with the person is good because you have Dharma because of them. Therefore, you're being very decent and very grateful. Doesn't mean you have to worship them instead of the Dharma. So that's why Buddha said, rely on the Dharma, not on the person, however much emphasized it is. A lot of people says, oh, my teacher is Dalai Lama. They want their teacher to be His Holiness Dalai Lama. Of course, they're fortunate if they haven't received direct teaching from him. Of course. But if they studied with others, they don't want to think they are teachers. See, they're following people. They're worshipping status. They will miss the bodhicitta if they do that. So therefore, one should not look like that, but try to armor the bodhicitta. Devotion to the bodhicitta, because of that, you are devoted to spiritual friend. And because of that, your intention to follow the bodhicitta is harnessed by the spiritual friend, and you are waxing your bodhicitta in spite of what ups and downs your personal karmic conditions will batter you. This does not beat you to lose your bodhicitta. But instead, it comes out brighter. Why? Because you have armored your bodhicitta. They talk about, have you insured your house? Have you insured your house contents? It's like that, Have you insured your bodhicitta? With Shanti Deva. The agent is Shanti Deva. Shanti Deva is the agent of insuring bodhicitta, He doesn't accept any money. He just wanted Bitcoin. He doesn't accept the money. He just accepts your sincerity. He just accepts your sincerity, and then he will sell you the product. Bodhicitta is an amazing product. His Holiness Dalai Lama cries when he talks about bodhicitta. I can understand. Definitely so. What is preciousness of His Holiness Dalai Lama? Because he teaches bodhicitta. He's almost like people recognize his kindness, his amazing humanity, because he teaches that, and that makes his own life meaningful. No matter what what tragedy happened to his people or his land or his status or whatever, it doesn't really bother him because they're not cause of his suffering. His cause of happiness is the gem. He's called Ishinobu, wish-fulfilling gem. Tibetans don't call him lightly like that. They call his holiness wish-fulfilling gem, Ishinobu. It's one of the 22 examples. They truly mean it, and they truly honor it. And likewise, everybody should have that kind of decency towards their spiritual friend, whoever they are, not because they are high status or whatever, or famous or whatever they are. That shouldn't be the reason. Some people in recent years, when the individual human teachers have some downfalls or some difficulties, and they all want nothing to do with him. They say terrible things against him, and this is really immature Buddhist. They haven't heard anything like these teachings on the importance of your own decency is at stake. They say once you have developed spiritual friend relationship, even if the person have committed such a terrible thing to go to hell, you still respect him. This is the actual teachings of the Mahayana spiritual tradition. It's not about worshipping them, but keeping your own goodness, your own decency and gratitude, and that you actually got the bodhichitta. You don't want to throw that away. Because if you did denigrate somebody because of their karma, and you're losing the very dharma, and then you won't have any bodhicitta left because you threw the baby with the bathwater. And when you see that, you can see how new Buddhism is, and people's understanding is. Barely 70 years. Of course, no wonder why. No wonder why. In Tibet, when the Buddhism came in, after 200 years, they had a complete retranslating of all the texts. And it took a long time before the people actually fathomed and appreciated Dharma. But never did anybody rebel against their Indian teachers, How Tibetan revere that Indian teachers is unthinkable, really. The Tibetan merit is because they did have loyalty. They did actually were good students. His Holiness Dalai Lama says, Indians and Theravadins, and they are teacher, they are senior to us. Tibetans are student, but he says we haven't been a bad student. we have actually honored Naropa, Virupa, Padmasambhava, no matter what unbelievable story their life is. But we all see them as their skillful dispensation to guide deluded sentient beings. You know what I mean? Marpa was not easy to deal with, but Milarepa had the amazing quality of a disciple that actually looked, and he could see only Hevajra in Marpa. He couldn't see anything, but others were projecting or saying what he was. Why? Because Milarepa was a good disciple. Milarepa was a good disciple. It's the good disciple that makes the difference of how the Dharma takes into the future, How the Dharma was in the past, yes, the previous teacher or teacher's teacher would be. But how would it continue from here into the next generation? Buck stops at us, How great Chogye Trichen Rinpoche was is not him, but what people like us revere him, respect him, and think fortunate that we had him, and things like that, If we don't have that, no matter how fantastic he was, we couldn't tell the stories to other people because we haven't got any inspiration. We tell all the things, maybe alleged things that he wasn't good or he wasn't good this. If we start telling that, then what are we going to do? We're going to inspire anybody? No. We won't. So therefore, here it says that one needs to ensure meaning one needs to armor the bodhicitta. You need to insure the bodhicitta. You got a beautiful car, but you got to insure before you drive. These days, I don't think anybody drives a car before it's insured, isn't it? Even insurance comes before you drive. So you should armor the bodhicitta first before you practice it, So that's the analogy that's the description of the wishing bodhicitta. Now, usually when you hear about wishing bodhicitta, they say, wishing bodhicitta is like you make a wish to go somewhere, and that wish to go is wishing bodhicitta. And that's simple as that. But here, Rongton brings these amazing, rich materials from the perfection of wisdom. Now, let's move to the second topic. Second topic is the engaging bodhicitta. Engaging enlightenment thought is the analogy of fire. Yeah. So this is a very important analogy because when you employ your bodhicitta, engage the bodhicitta, wishing is just thinking of going. Yeah. Now, when you put into use, it should be like fire. By adding wood in the fire, it will be incinerated. What is the wood analogy? Wood is your karma, your defilements, your neurosis. The people or companions or provocators or insulters or whatever. These are the woods. These are the woods, These are the fuels. Now you need to put your bodhicitta in use and incinerate these things. So therefore, engaged bodhicitta burns the wood like karma and misperception and shared difficulties, adversity, all of these, just like the fire burns all the wood. Likewise, your actual application of a bodhicitta, this is about example of application. Your application of bodhicitta, virtuous dharma, will incinerate the fuels of non-virtue, whether the physical, verbal, mental, perception, mostly deluded perception. You have to burn the fuels of your deluded perception of parents or someone or your fellow practitioner or whoever that it is. You should use your bodhicitta to burn the fuel of your whatever negativities that manifests. By practicing in the six perfections, so all the six perfections are the analogies of the share the same one overall analogy of how should one's six perfections should be employed? Like the fire. So when you're meant to practice generosity, you just use generosity to burn the fuel of miserliness and stinginess and so on. When you practice patience, you just practice patience. Keep your cool, calmness, and not retaliate, not rebel. That then it's just like you should employ the fire. All the six perfection, when you apply them, you should be like a fire burning the fuel. The fuel of the antithesis, such as miserliness, will be burnt. For when you practice generosity, your miserliness is destroyed. Your meanness is destroyed, and so on. So now up to that is the fourth analogy. So fourth analogy is very important because fourth analogy should be remembered whenever you employ any of the 6 parameters. Now from here onwards comes to go to specifically talk about the rest of the main parameters. Firstly, generosity, perfection of generosity of this first of the 6 parameters. So when you look at the 22 analogies, seventh analogy, which is the ocean. Seventh is fifth analogy is the mine, isn't it? Mine, gem, mine, treasure, mine. So fifth analogy corresponds to generosity, perfection of generosity. So what do you do when you practice perfection of generosity? First, with the method of practicing the perfections in association with the enlightenment thought, because you have to practice bodhicitta. You have to have 3 armored bodhicitta, 1 engaged bodhicitta, and that should be like a mine. Like you shouldn't feel like, I haven't got much to give type of thing. You should got tons to give. You don't have to be rich to give. You just have to have ideas, little tenderness, little kindness. So you should have lots of mine-like things. You can do anything if you're generous. You don't have to be rich to practice generosity. So it means you have to discover the mind of generosity. Firstly, to practice generosity, one should train to have a stable earth-like devotion to practice generosity. So now that first example of earth, you should be devoted to practice generosity. You really love giving, for instance. You really like giving, and so you need to do that. Then train to have the thought to practice generosity that is unchangeable like gold quality. The people say, I will help, but then they change the mind, So that's changeable, So they change the mind, they're not going to help anymore, But one who has conceived the bodhicitta, not only his reason to give is really good, like earth, and not only that, he's not changing his mind. He said he will help, and he will help. No. So that was unchangeable like gold, because still we're wishing bodhicitta, remember? And then ensure that the thought to practice generosity is increasing like waxing moon. If you have given something, you say, no, I'm not going after that. You still, maybe you can't give the same thing more, but you are still able to, maybe someone else can help you do that. And you always try to increase. So your generosity is not sort of drips and drabs, and then after that, look, I have done my bit, please go away type of thing. No, even if you can't, you try to show somewhere, what can you help to make it happen. So this should be like waxing, Every perfection practice you do must be armored bodhicitta, earth-like, gold-like, and waxing moon-like as an intention before you engage in practice such as generosity. To ensure that the thought to practice generosity increasing like waxing moon. So you gave help yesterday, and 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you don't think that's it. No, please go away. I am fatigued of helping you. I'm tired of helping. So then it's not waxing. Then engage in the actual generosity so that the fuel like miserliness and procrastination and complacency, attachment to what they will do to you, all of this should be incinerated. So your nature of engaging in the generous practice should be such that it doesn't have any of those fuels, those antitheses. So that's an overview, okay? That's an overview how you should employ each of the 6 parameters, not just generosity. Because each of them should have the 3 armored bodhicitta plus the fire-like engage. Now, in order to practice the each of the 6 parameters, Rongton does this beautiful way of presenting. This is what makes this book so important. He says, second is how to practice the 6 parameters. He says there are 4. Firstly, laying the foundation of 4 noble truths. Each parameters he talks about 4 noble truths in relation to that. Firstly, lay the foundation of 4 noble truths. Second is relying upon the virtuous friend. Third is training in the method and wisdom. So method is compassion, wisdom is emptiness, and fourth is training in the 4 practices. So these 4 are very, very important. If you understand this in one example like generosity, then you basically ditto it with each of the other perfections. So let's go through this one by one. Firstly, what is the laying the foundation of 4 noble truths? He's laying the foundation of 4 noble truths. Miserliness is the truth of origin. So miserliness is the truth of origin. When you talk of generosity, so miserliness is truth of origin of sorrow. If you have misery, if you have suffering, it's because you are miserly. Not just that. One of the many things is, one is because you have many truth of origin. One is miserliness, and the second is in previous life one did not practice giving due to the influence of miserliness. So in this life also one is born very miserly, and one really one. In this life also one doesn't have any intention to. One's source is miserliness, so the product is miserly. It's not that person hasn't got much, but even he has. But still he doesn't have any intention to give. When it comes to giving, he won't be the giver. He might do the other things, but when it comes to giving, he's not willing to give. Why? So he may have a lot, but he has no happiness. Why? He has miserliness. What does miserliness do? Produce misery. They actually cognate. Miserliness produces misery. Generous produce joy. Generous person who's generous is very, very happy. Happy person instead of saying may the beings have happiness and cause, how it's cause happiness? Cause happiness, generosity. May they be free from suffering. Why? Cause of suffering is miserliness. If you're miserly, then you will be not happy with your dad or sister or job or whatever. Never right. Never good thing. You can never see good in others when you have miserliness. So miserliness is the true origin of suffering. This is very important because we talk about Four Noble Truths. And elsewhere teaching says, when you do not interplay the Four Noble Truths in the teachings of the Buddha, you have a danger of not understanding the Dharma. So therefore Rongton makes a deliberate attempt to each parameter you have to bring the Four Noble Truth concept. Yeah? Even if there is some giving, even if you do give, it will be impure giving. You have impure motivation, you have some hidden agenda, you are giving to the object out of attachment to you are so attached to somebody you're giving them, not because they need it, but you're bribing them because so that they will love you or they will do this. So lots of people give, but impure giving, Giving flowers. Why are you giving flowers? Why are you giving flowers? It's nice if you don't have any kind of impure intention. Giving flower is beautiful, but what are your intention of giving? Sometimes people give, but give with the kind of impure intention. They are impure giving. They are impure materials. So some are impure as a motivation, others are impure as general because what you give is poison or bad material, dangerous ideas. You give those. So there are many things that are impure intention, impure material, and there are impure thought of conceiving. This is very important. There are impure thought of conceiving three circles. Three circles means circle of object, circle of subject, circle of the action. So recipient, if you attach the recipient, you attach the general person you want to giving to. That's the concept of you are tainted. Yeah, you are tainted by truly grasping to the object to you who you give to. So that's conceiving the circle of the object, or thinking I'm the one who gave this. I'm the one who give. Who else give as much as me? That is the conceiving I, the giver, as the main thing. Another thing is the giving itself. The giving itself is the great thing. So most people's giving is made impure by these three wrong conceptions. There are impure dedication also, aimed for truly existing samsaric result. Some people are giving to dedicate for worldly reasons, or lesser purposes to attain nirvana for oneself. So these are like from the Mahayana's point of view, true origin of suffering. You're practicing generosity, but you're doing it with the wrong intention, wrong purposes, wrong objects, so there becomes the true origin of suffering again. Some people have lots of things in this life. They have so much, but they are not happy with the most of the thing. Why? The thing they have is true origin of their misery, their past lives kind of things, So even the things they have, they never give them happiness because the things they have is actually result of impure generosity. They give generously, because of that they have inherited a lot. But they don't have any happiness from it. Why? Because what they inherited is a result of impure generosity. So you can see that, isn't it? Some people may be called poor, maybe haven't got a lot, but they don't have the same misery because of that. So that's the first one. First of the looking at the true origin of suffering. True origin of suffering, yeah? And then, of course, if you have origin of suffering is miserliness, then you will have misery. That's the truth of suffering itself. Truth of suffering itself. Person then is actually suffering. And some people not only have those impure generosity, impure motivation, but even when they dedicate, they do impure dedications. Through impure dedication, one will gain wealth. Yeah, some people have dedicated, but they're dedicated for wrong, small things, small specific things for me. And one may either encounter numerous physical, verbal, and mental hardships, or face numerous harms caused by enemies and obstacles. So you have lots of things, but you never get to enjoy the things. You have so many hindrances and obstacles in your life because this is a result of due to impure dedication. People dedicate, but dedicate for lowly, mundane kind of, you can call real life reasons. Real life reasons. People dedicated for real life situations. One neither dares to give to others, nor can he even spend or enjoy for himself. So this is the kind of true origin is. True origin is not that he doesn't have things, but he can't even enjoy it. His day and night sleeplessness is caused by attachment to things. So it becomes source of his misery. He can't even do anything. He can't enjoy, spend anything, but he keep worrying about those things. He's very possessive about it. So the more he have, more misery he has. But thinking that it will be improper to have no wealth left towards end of life, one becomes thrifty. One always thinking, I won't have enough. Oh, I won't have enough. One would always plan of long years that one will not live. And so one is saving for the time one will not live. In the meantime, one is spend all misery in conflicts and argument, even with the loved ones. So what do? Sweat and tear. Oh, so that's why it's the true origin of suffering. True origin of suffering. Misery, true origin. One will be thrifty over food, over clothes, over possession, become overwhelmingly miserly even towards oneself, let alone to your mother or the father or the loved ones or elderly or sick or those who need more than one would not even think of doing that. He dares not eat even if he possesses inexhaustible quantity of food. Lots of the food that he has got cold, rotten and destroyed, and he couldn't even eat. And that's a lot of that. He's unable to use clothes even if he possesses inexhaustible clothes to wear. He has lots of clothes, but he can't even wear enough of them because he's got too much. He's so thrifty like the leak at the bottom of alcohol pot. This is an interesting example. The alcohol pot means people really make it very well so the alcohol doesn't drop. So the leak is very small, isn't it? Leak is very small. He's so thrifty. He wouldn't let spend anything. He would always keep thinking of saving some for miserable future he never will see. Yeah. Then the sutra says, evil person is so stingy like the dog's tongue. When it comes to dog, when they might be huge pool of water, but they don't know how to drink, they're leaking. So the dog doesn't know how to drink, Like the person who's miserly doesn't know enjoy. He's just leaking things, So the dog is very thirsty, but even when he reaches to the water or river, he merely licks water with his tongue as he does not know how to drink properly. The miserly is very much like that. Miserly is very much like that. That's showing the truth of origin. Truth of origin. Yeah, truth of origin of suffering. Where does people's suffering comes from? Not because others are not generous to them. Not because they don't have them. They're so miserly. They don't dare to even say they have this. They even hide from themselves they have things. They hide from others, of course. And when they're going to spend? No, they will have to spend in the future, remember? They've got many years to live, They're planning to live years they never will see. And one day they drop dead and die very rich. You wouldn't believe people only die when they rich and never have time to use it for good purposes. And in the meantime, even few family members towards whom their relationships are soured, it's over things they are fighting. Over miserable things they have become almost not talking to each other. So, this is the true origin of suffering. Attachment to ephemeral world possessions as they are the real thing. They are cause of burden. True origin of suffering is burden. You're carrying the burden. You don't like burden, but you're carrying it. Why don't you drop it? When one doesn't know the miserliness is the cause of suffering, he or she will have constant misery. Thus, there are numerous things that which one put oneself behind due to attachment to material possessions. Due to attachment to food and wealth, one is bound by aversion towards others who have either taken or fear what they may take from oneself. Although giving things to others is cause of abundance and perfection and joy, not knowing how to give it to others, one remains ignorant and miserable. Due to these three poisons, one is fettered by them like the effect of eating poisonous food. So this is talking about the true of origin. So you got to lay the foundation. In Sakya Pandita's sage's intent, he talks about demerits of miserliness. He talks about demerits of miserliness. But he doesn't say this is true origin of suffering, for instance. But Rongton goes, this true origin of suffering. So don't tell us that Four Noble Truths is some elementary Buddhist teachings. But Four Noble Truth is applicable to talking about generosity. Why you have to practice generosity? Generosity is the truth of the path. And not practicing generosity is true origin of the sorrow, So it explains like that, It's amazing. So that's why we shouldn't think that Four Noble Truths is some elementary thing, that's some introduction for the first day you hear of Buddhism. No, even as a very full-fledged Mahayana practitioner should realize, I'm miserly. That's why I have misery. I'm miserable. That's because I'm not generous. The true origin of suffering. True origin of suffering, I'm not generous. For that matter, you can look at all the other aspects of six paramitas later on. This is what the beauty about this is. When you have this kind of, I would say, outline to explain each of the six paramitas in sequence. Thus, there are numerous things, numerous things that one need to learn how to let go. If one examines earlier and later situations, earlier where you what you used to do, what you didn't do, what you didn't give, what you deliberately kept and saved and protected and so on, then later on what they have become, it's just like it appears that one does not really have the power to use the acquired wealth, One has only the power and responsibility to acquire them with a lot of sweat and tear. But one doesn't have the joy of spending them, giving them, celebrating them, sharing with others. So what did they become? They become burden. They become that prison that traps you, that you can't go anywhere because you're so attached to them. Effective action cannot be repelled. Your own miserly action cannot be stopped. They will follow you. Like the ox pulls the cart goes wherever he takes. Inherited wealth is but undeserving burden. Now, one moment we talk about the true origin of suffering, we think inherited wealth is some great gift. No, it's a burden. It's a burden, undeserving burden. You wouldn't believe how many people's lives, like Shakyamuni Buddha, when he was born as a prince in the celebrated Shakya family, where everything was there, he realized, I don't want to carry this burden. I don't want to carry this burden. What's the point of me trying to do this? See, he was the intelligent. He doesn't want to inherit such a weight of gunk. Of sweat and tear and blood and theft and robbery and killing and war, you name it, they're all in it. That's why they say material possessions are usually the kind of burden and hindrance for your spiritual growth. Of course, but if it's used skillfully, they can be useful temporarily for doing things, if used properly. Otherwise, it's a burden. The burden is increasing, weight is increasing. Although exerting a great deal of effort to obtain material wealth is empty of essence, he says, all the effort that one makes is really essenceless, and still failing to realize that. It is meaningless activity which one only succeeds to deceive oneself and alike. So it's self-deceiving, thinking that you can save and earn and invest and invest. It's a self-deception, meaningless activity, meaningless activity. It becomes a cause of discord between you and your loved ones. You lost friendship over that miserable small piece of furniture. You never talk to your brother there after that. Over that little ladle or over that dinner set. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many people's friendship has completely gone out of the window over such miserable things. Self-deception. Yeah, deceiving oneself as you're looking after yourself. But actually you create a misery of resentment, bitterness, and over small material objects. Even millions of things would not worth the suffering. Those who hoard wealth through dishonesty, fraudulence are indeed pitiful. Even things you have acquired from your sweat and tear. But to hoard them, not use them, not have the graciousness to do good deeds with them, and being a burden to you is indeed pitiful. The result of the misdeed ripens upon oneself, but not anybody else. So the karma, you may have to leave everything behind, but the karma that you committed to earn or save those things will follow you, will not be left behind, people. Eventually, when the actual effect of the others generous to oneself are ripened just before one's death, then and when one gives them to the children or nephews, one thinks and says, this gift is from all the hardship I have endured. It completely destroys the gift. This is my gift to you, and my kindness to you is indeed great. You better not forget me. It's almost like it's another nail to the coffin. That it's bad enough already, and making it even worse by telling that this is I who earned all these hard years, and then you should really remember that I'm the one who's giving this to you. When people have an armored bodhicitta, they give, but they give like with that, poison. They're just making the people feel guilty. Children will remember later on, gosh, my dad worked all this 40 years that he gave me, then he died. And they were given, but they remember what he said. They remember he didn't give graciously. They gave him almost like a blackmailing, you better remember me or face the consequence stuff. Will that be a cause of the benefit to the children? No, cause of discord. You wouldn't believe how many inheritance has become cause of the fighting between the siblings. But children who have nothing inherited materially from the parents have only love for the parents. I remember our family, we become yakless and whatever, penniless or whatever. When all our brothers and sisters met their partners or married, nobody had anything to fight on. It's so nice. So we inherited nothing. We inherited nothing because we left our land. All the yaks died, and all the very heavy sheepskin gowns were no use. So what? So what we're gonna do? We still remember the kindness of parents, like amazing. It's just unmatchable gratitude, because we didn't have material things to fight on. Therefore, none of our children, none of our siblings have anything to complain of our parents, because they just had love. and they were made penniless by the war or whatever, and therefore there's no conflict, really. But you wouldn't believe when the families have few things, then it becomes cause of discord. Things make people fight. People forget their loved ones, friendship with brothers and sisters, so on, over things. How things are poisoned by miserliness, greediness, and stinginess, and competitiveness, jealousy. All suffering comes from miserliness. That's what true origin, true origin of suffering, second noble truth, noble truth of suffering. Why people have suffering? Because they are miserly, because they fight over things, because they wouldn't dare to spend or give to anything. They're always enslaving themselves day in, day out to save, to get, and only to make the burden heavier than it ever need to be. If one examines, earlier, that's right. It says, but in reality, your kindness is not great to him, the parents who tells them, I gave you all these things. Children don't feel good, good at all. The Buddha did not teach how one obtains wealth without having formally practiced generosity. Buddha said those who have wealth have inherited wealth in this life, having practiced generosity. But the generosity that is given with the wrong motivation, without the armored bodhichitta, they only become burden. They have wealth, but they're miserable. Why? Their generosity was tainted by lack of armored bodhicitta. They didn't check the motivation. They didn't check the why, what they were giving, who they were giving, why they were giving. They didn't check. It was all with the hidden agenda. And therefore, even though they have things, the things become cause of the burden to their misery. It didn't become cause of happiness. So, that's why the renunciation in teaching of the Dharma is renunciation to material things. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have the things, but if you're not attached to them, then you have the graciousness and fitness to give and use when the things is more best utilized for the greater good of many. For instance, when you can, it's danger of being too late sometimes. We procrastinate, we delay giving. You have merely conditioned for their practice of giving to become ripened. The material wealth that came from your miserly hoarding is either similar to the money from slavery taken away from the master, or honey from the hard-working bees is taken away by the beekeeper. By the beekeeper. Even though such is the case, owing to the ignorance about the theory of cause and effect, cause and effect means that the miserliness is the cause of your misery. But yet people practicing miserliness as it's going to make them happy if they can keep more. So because that people don't know the cause and effect, miserly is actually going to make them more misery to them. It was not understood because of being distracted by worldly conception. Worldly conception, he's rich, look, he's got this. People think having more is better. And if you haven't got much, people think they look down upon you, Why does all the saints, all the yogis try to be simple and not having more than a couple of robes and a baking bowl? They're the wisest ones. They're the enlightened ones because they have no weight. They have no weight of possession to carry. If they have more than a couple of pairs of robes, they consider to be a bit too much. At the moment of death, except having to experience the ripened action, one is indeed so powerless to do anything with the things you have hoarded, kept so many years. You just cannot even say, please, can you take that one or put over there? They can't even do that. It will be all probably used and taken by somebody you have least want them to do. usually. To those who are deserving or need to be given to, you didn't give it. And it will be taken away by someone who is least deserving. So all your sweat and tear goes to waste. Of course, it wouldn't go waste, but it doesn't quite fulfill the wishes. Yeah, even though such is the case, owing to the ignorance about this, people are doing this. Yeah, one's wealth becomes one's wealth becomes like a severed hereditary lineage. When others take them away, one is filled with only regret. One day, indeed, it will go somewhere. Because the misery only stays misery. Then you can't do anything. Who takes it? Who uses it? You can't. Maybe even you stay long, very old, but your sense bodies are completely unable to use anything. You can just see others taking advantage of it, or maybe cobwebs takes go. So then you say, gosh, I should have used that. I should have done this. No, you can't do anything because then it's always regret. Then scratch the chest, they say. Regret with scratching the chest. It is similar to gold mine run out of gold. It's the person has so much but got so little value. When fellow miner return home after having mined a lot of gold, some unlucky ones have dug up a deep but invisible mine hole, piled a mountain of earth, then mine collapse, and then they run out of food and provisions. Their clothes have become tattered. The miners are tired and suffer their exhaustions. Their bodies injured, incarcerated and bloody. As their hands have been exposed to harsh conditions, the skins are cracked. When they finally got out of the mine, not having even a nugget size or a grain or a bean size gold with them, they suffer from extreme regret, pity, and blame themselves and lament. What a pity that there is one such as me. I have no gold, unlike others who took that much. All the efforts have proven to be fruitless after making that much effort. Thus, they become disgusted with themselves. So, they're talking about miserliness. That's just explanation of the first noble truth. The truth of origin of suffering is miserliness, is stinginess. So, therefore, one who's really I would say inspired and motivated to practice bodhicitta, then they must now take up bodhicitta, the wishing bodhicitta, with armored wishing bodhicitta, really bent on, dedicated, with good intention, extraordinary intention like earth, gold, and waxing moon. Then one must engage in practicing generosity. Practicing generosity is like the fire, and the generosity itself like the mine. Now you have no shortage to give. And it doesn't mean things should be idea, should be effort, should be willingness to cooperate or assist. Got a lot of generosity could be just a little assistance, just a little help, and no need to show that you did anything. You just help someone to do things. That could be very useful generosity, because when you're like a mine. You can mine of a gem. Some people who are really willing to help, they say you are a gem. Yeah, because you're always willing to empower them to do things. So generosity doesn't mean you have to be a billionaire or millionaire or emptying your pocket. It is starting to mean that what you empower others to do, that brings so much joy and happiness, and then it's like the noble truth of the path, generosity. When you're generous, you make others happy, yourself happy, and then also makes even onlookers happy. And so that's the actual truth of the path itself. That's coming. But I think we'll stop there tonight. Thank you, everybody. So this is how Rongton will explain all the the 6 parameters using these three armored bodhicitta as an intention bodhicitta, the engaging bodhicitta as a fire, and then rest of the analogies correspondingly explain in relation to the Four Noble Truths and the rest of the outlines we just discussed. So thank you everybody for your very, very, I mean, this is best generosity, is giving yourself, giving your time to listen to Dharma. I mean, that's even generosity we cannot practice unless we have the power of the knowledge to that why giving is living. You know, people are always thinking taking is living, but giving is truly living. But teaching like the Dharma in general, Mahayana teachings like this, you know, that's why the Dharma is precious, because it empowers us to do things we had no way of knowing, you know. We're always told that you should keep, you will need it. You should save, you will need it in the future. Or you should put in a golden nest, or you should put super. Many people never got to live long enough to claim any super. They sweat and tear, suffer, and got nothing. You know, of course, in a country like this, it's a shared economy. Everybody contribute to the main pool, so it's very good. It never go wasted. I know there are a lot of unclaimed super. So there's quite a lot of people unintentionally very generous, unintentionally generous. And I tell you, this government is very good. They're dispensing all the medicine, vaccination, free of charge to all people. Amazing. I mean, I can't believe how generous this government, this nation's, this country, the system is. Really big family. It's really, really one big family. And how people with extreme disability to minor sort of health problems or whatever, completely looked after by this system of this. You know, when you look at it, we cannot complain of others being ungenerous. We are completely supported by all hardworking 20 million other people. You know, you wouldn't believe. So we have every reason to be grateful and thankful, and that's generosity, you know. And we have to know how to be thankful. That's a generosity. But the teaching of the Dharma only help us to conceive these things, conceive bodhicitta, altruism, selflessness, and then we feel rich already. We don't have to get more. We have to see what we already got. Which is already people gave, which already what we have. Many are wishing to have them. We already have them. We are not happy. So that's the problem. We have precious human rebirth. We have freedom. We have freedom of practicing Dharma, you know, and freedom of Zooming. Everywhere. Nobody controls, nobody stops what you're teaching, because you're not teaching any material that harms the society. You know, of course, there's a reason for the government to prevent them. They give us a special permission as an association that we can do work like this for the benefit of people. We live in amazingly semi-divine, you know. I mean, even though the Dharma, wheel-turning Dharma kings lived, I don't know what they did, you know. You know, I know they sat on golden thrones, that's for sure. And maybe they sat on in a horse cart with the golden thrones pulled in the street. Everybody cheered them. You know, these days our leaders are really working hard. Quite a lot of them, you know. There will be all kinds, but the majority are really working hard. I completely believe, you know, they try so hard. They try to front up the camera every day how the weather is going to affect you tomorrow, how the fire is going to affect you tomorrow. Please don't go over there. It's amazing, you know. When you look at this, so generosity is seeing the good in our society and our government, our people, and that's generosity. You know, generous doesn't mean you have to empty your pocket, and not that, and you can empty your pocket too, but mainly just pour your heart out and see the good and compliment more, complain less. That's generosity. If you have a lot of complaint, you have true origin of suffering. Because you're only complaining all the time. Wherever and whatever. But you're complimenting, that's generosity. You really have no time to talk about things you don't have. Because what you have is already abundantly more than what you need. And when you have such generosity, if that doesn't come from the teachings teaching us to think like that, they can teach us what to get, how to make profit, how to get double payment on Sunday and all of that. That's not generosity. That's just that's probably driving yourself to the hungry ghost realm, and sooner or later some people always try to work on Sunday so they can double pay. I don't know about that. Some people work volunteers. They think volunteers are not working like dog, Volunteers are doing out of goodwill, out of their generosity. They actually do a lot of heavy lifting in the society. They don't choose when to work. They don't choose to work on Sundays. They choose to work when they are needed, like the firefighters. We have a lot of walking bodhisattvas without noticing they didn't formally receive bodhicitta teachings. But they're doing so much. If you look, you will see the generosity of our community already. So, instead of talking about the demerit of miserliness, we should talk about the merit of generosity. We don't want to talk about demerit of miserliness except to highlight the merit of generosity. Because you can't talk one and not the other, This is what the Buddha is so amazing, In order to make people practice kindness to each other, he talk about demerits of not being kind, And then the people realize, the virtue of kindness, virtue of generosity. Because he's able to put a slant, he's hinting to practice generosity, He's talking about demerit, truth of origin sorrow is miserliness, truth of origin miserliness. And then naturally people will be influenced, people will be taught, people will be shown. Teacher means to show the way, and then the guide teaches you where to go, where not to go. Talking about the dangers of miserliness, if one is not already experiencing the result of it. Warning the danger of miserliness in the future, in the next life, or later in the year. And then one started to live. One is starting to live when one is able to rejoice the good that you already have. Then you start seeing good in your father. You start good in your in-laws. You have less to complain. That is the teaching. That will completely incinerate your misery. But previously you had litany of complaints. Now you don't know why you want to waste more time of yours. You will do exactly opposite. That's the incineration. That's the fire. That's the fire. It will burn your misery, burn your bad attitude, burn your wrong views, and it will open your eyes. Like the guide, it says that they will give you an eye. Yeah, you will find an eye. This is insight meditation. Insight meditation is not just watching the sensation of the tip of your nostrils, okay? This is real insight. To practice right attitude. And that insight will give you more than a third eye could afford. So insight means that give you an eye, We usually, Dharma is like a lamp, torch. And we truly find a torch so that we know how to negotiate in the thicket of jungle of wrong views. Okay, thank you everyone. Tonight it seems all the questions answered in relation to the topic concerned, so we won't have any time for questions. We'll do the dedication merit. Could you please screen share the merit, dedication merit? Thank you everyone. Om Bade Mere Mewe Hawaga Da Deva Benze Ge Hom Neje Me Ale from the Ashana Parajesana the Herenda Mahayana Buddhist whatever Merada Havagra Meho Bebe Gazalavas to the Mahayana Buddhist courage Manju Shinyo Azama Jabara de Lava following all the example Asha de all the mere Mede Selem bodhichitta Teba Verhana Yedanza where has been born freely with the generation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Welcome.